Why do we actually begin with that game? I wasn't going to do it initially, but it is something quite interesting about Celtic's 6-0 victory over Aberdeen, which is the Aberdeen aspect of it. I think it's fair to say Celtic and Rangers just both winning this past weekend. Both doing it very different kind of shades of comfort, but both doing it in very comfortable fashion. So not that entirely interesting from a title race perspective. However, from the perspective of what's happening with Aberdeen right now, it just seems like it's weird because it's hard to describe Aberdeen's season as a roller coaster because you're still like 9th or 10th of the table.
Yeah.
But you've done, results haven't been there, but performances in Europe have been good. And you're in the final of the League Cup. But it just feels like for every step forward, there's like 2 steps backwards this season under Robson.
I think for every step forward, there's a step back. It's just one. It's gone nowhere. There's been lots of encouraging performances. There's been some fantastic performances, especially in Europe. There's been a couple, there's been 2 in the league. And I think the frustrating thing is, it feels like the squad's the best squad we've had in a really long time. And from the European performances especially, there looked like there was a blueprint for how to play. But that was like a throwback to the bad old days, because the best part of what Robson's been able to do since he's come in is minimize mistakes. Largely minimizes mistakes. Not been too good at forcing mistakes on other teams. It's largely been, a flash of inspiration from somebody. And that's been the problem this season, is that a couple of the players that were kind of the go-tos to make things happen haven't been there, haven't turned it on. And I think that for me, the biggest problem with it is after the games, after bad performances, and there have been a few this season, Barry Robson's been quite good at going, this is what the problem was in that game. And sometimes it's really obvious, like they all look absolutely knackered. That's within your power to control, though. And the idea, in theory, going to Celtic Park and playing the same way as you did, setting up the same way as you did against Frankfurt, setting up the same way as you did against PAOK away, with this 9 men behind the ball, 1 runner that's going to occupy the strikers. In theory, that's a really interesting way to play. But if the team's tired, that's far harder than actually going and having a go and having runners. And, maybe the ball will stick and maybe you'll have a spell of pressure.
Well, is that the big problem with Aberdeen this season, is that there's a lot of money spent in the summer, because you saw the blueprint last year with Hearts, and it was kind of similar with Hearts as well, although Hearts were using their players that they bought a bit more, they just weren't any good. But Aberdeen have brought in a few guys to make sure that the team's not always so tired, like that you can handle the rigours of playing on Thursday and playing on Sunday. The only problem is Robson only trusts about 13 of them.
Yeah, that's pretty much it. I think there's 15 or 16, but it's strictly 15 or 16. And there are, and to an outsider, it's frustrating because there's a whole bunch of players that are on the bench or not in the squad who could do a really good job at, in the league, are tried and tested, or have played at a level that's, consistent with being a higher level than they would be required for in the league. So I think the frustration is there was a squad that was built, and he would have liked another couple of bodies, and it's a little bit unbalanced, and it's not necessarily set up to dramatically change the system if needed. But there are still there's still Esther Sockler, Vinny Busegin. Seen fleeting bit. We've not seen any of Rhys Williams, or Daddy has played at international level with Israel. We've not seen anything of him. And if the idea is that the players are knackered, and they did look knackered, they did look absolutely knackered, and I will buy the excuse to some extent that being really tired after that game and the PAOK game, they did run themselves into the ground. All of that's true, but it's within your control to do something about that and freshen the squad up a bit and use the resources that you've got a little bit better.
Craig, go to you for the kind of, I don't know why they go to you for the Celtic point of view, but looking at the...
Craig with an H in my name.
Looking at the champions in this one, I think the biggest thing from them is just the fact that Luis Palma continues to look very good. He got a goal and I think 3 assists for this one. And Yang was one of the kind of star performers in this one. He was somebody that at the start of the campaign did look quite sharp and thought he could be a decent signing, and then kind of you did wonder whether he was one of these guys that just kind of looked good but didn't really provide anything. But that's him now got a goal. And when I was looking at I was preparing doing the team of the week for the SPFL, I had to look at Kerry Dale Street. Kerry Dale Street's always really good for that because they always have that after every single game they've got the who's the man of the match, and it's always 3 players, so it's always like a good easy selection. Like if I need a Celtic player, I can put them in any part of the team almost. But I saw that Yang was consistently mentioned amongst all of them, so now he seems to be not just somebody that's being a bit tricky to defenders, is also coming up with an end product as well.
Yeah, and I think what they have, and they were talking about Rangers and their lack of attacking options, Celtic have a plethora of guys in those front positions. So you see who I'm not the biggest fan of, comes on and scores a couple of goals as well. He'll going off, obviously they lose a big player, but they've got so many attacking players. Palma probably wasn't a starter at the start of the season. He's not one of the ones you would have had down as, well, obviously wasn't because he didn't have him then, but you know what I mean. They wouldn't have had him down as like a starting player, but he is really looking very good. And the assist for the 5th goal is incredible. The outside of the foot cross, it's superb. And they're doing that in such a way that you talked about Aberdeen's lack of rotation. Rodgers definitely trusts all of those attacking players to play. He's even, given James Forrest the odd start. Hasn't gone that well, but they've been.
He really thinks it's James Forrest of 2016, doesn't he?
Got to keep cool. Plug away, you never know. But, so they have a lot of really good options, and Yang's one who I think they'll probably be looking at and think they can ease him in because he's young and he's...
that is the big thing though. You talk about Yang, you talk about, that was like what we were saying about Celtic just a few weeks ago, was that they're lacking the quality to bring off the bench. And if these guys can actually provide something, then that's a huge advantage to Celtic when it comes to the title race, because it does seem like that there might actually be a title race now. I think everybody was just assuming that it was going to be a cakewalk because Rangers were absolutely dreadful under Michael Beale, but as we'll come on to talk to later in the show, they have been improved under Philippe Clement, and it does look like they're going to end up being a tougher out for Celtic. And where you would see Celtic dropping points was the fact that in games where it wasn't working for them early in the campaign, it just looked like they had so little in order to change it. But if it's blown hot and cold. At time for me has looked exactly what Celtic have needed, and then other times he's just really not done much. This was a game where he kind of he's the different option off the bench that they need. He's the bigger guy. He's a very different type of player to Kyogo. He gets his goals. He seems to be a decent enough goal scorer. But at the same time, I still wonder. He does seem like still a fairly big downgrade on Giakoumakis, and that's up to him to kind of prove otherwise. Still, I would say.
Yeah, he's got a lot of that. They need a player like that. They need someone who's a bit more physical, etc. But yeah, he's not. I was saying to you, a lot of the goals he seems to score are exactly that, where they're already 3 and 4-0 up, and that's okay. But they don't really. They're not the goals you remember when you're thinking about any title that you win. It's like it's the last minute winners and the goals like that.
It's the Mark Burchill goal for Celtic, the 5th or the 6th in a 5 or 6-0 win.